Okay. I can do a quick intro if you like.
Yeah. So YouTube's on, yeah?
YouTube live as well, yeah.
Okay. Okay, good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome you all here to the Monday night meditation session. We're here at the BSV, the Buddha Loka Centre in Malvern East. Myself, Ajahn Sadaro, and I have two very, very reliable AV geniuses with me at the moment that are facilitating this simultaneous YouTube stream, plus also a Zoom, there's an online Zoom session as well. If anybody would like to, that is listening on YouTube and they would like to jump into the Zoom room as well, you can actually sort of see me tonight, and you can sort of be a part of the community. There's a fair few people on there at the moment. I can't really count how many, but there seems like a decent amount there. So if you'd like to pop over there as well, you're more than welcome. A few sort of housekeeping kind of things, as per usual at the moment. You're obviously still in lockdown, so all our teachings are remaining online at the moment. It's the Sunday talk, the Monday meditation, obviously. So yeah, just sign up to the newsletter, keep updated, and we'll keep rolling with the punches, and we'll keep ever expanding our technological abilities and having more options there for you. So there's a lot of people working hard behind the scenes with this. So this is quite nice. Other than that, anything else or no? Okay. Well, if there's nothing else, also you can, if you have any questions, if you're watching on YouTube, you're more than welcome to put the questions in the chat. We'll sit for a little while, and then after that, before we finish up, I'll answer some questions. And likewise with Zoom, the nice thing about Zoom is that if you jump into the Zoom room and you want to ask me a question, you can just sort of turn your microphone on and ask me the question. It's a bit easier. So yeah, if you have any questions tonight, sort of prepare them for the next 30 seconds. Think maybe what that is, and then we'll put the questions down and think about them later. So we'll start the meditation now. Just try to find a comfortable seat, however you're sitting, whether you're sitting on the floor or sitting on a chair. Doesn't really matter. But one thing that it is good to try to do is, even if you are sitting on a chair, to try to keep the back nice and straight. It's also a good idea as well if you're watching this on a laptop or something. Turn your notifications off. And also, if you've got the phone handy, it's good to actually put the phone as far away as possible. But obviously, if you're watching on the phone, it's best to turn the notifications off to have as little distractions as possible. We can just start the meditation by, as we're putting down our phones and all these kinds of devices, we should also make the determination that any concerns, any worries, any plans about tomorrow or things that will be coming up, it's good to just put these down for the time being. It's the time that you actually get to practice meditation. It's very precious, so try to make the most of it. We can also make the determination that we'll try our best to keep our mind in the present moment, and if it does wander off to the future or back into the past, that we won't get too overly concerned about it. We just realize that this is the way that the mind is, and accept that this is the way that the mind is. And our only job is to just continue to start again anew. So for now, we can start to bring our attention to the feeling of our body sitting here and resting here. You feel the weight of your body as it sinks into the chair or the seat. You can feel those more coarse sensations, the feeling of your legs crossed, the feeling of your feet on the ground, or your hands touching your knees. Again, what you're trying to do is pull your mind into the present. And establish that this is the time that you're sitting here meditating. You can pay closer attention to the sensations throughout the body. Noticing any pressure, any vibration, any tingling. And you can just scan your awareness up and down the length of your body from the soles of your feet. Move your awareness up through your body like you would a spotlight, shining it across a field. Move your attention through your body and take note of the different sensations that are there. And importantly, whatever sensations you do notice, try not to judge them as either pleasant or painful, good or bad. Just observe them arise, change, and then eventually pass away. So just spend the next few minutes scanning your attention up and down the length of the body, observing the sensations arise and pass. As you move your attention through your body, you do notice any tension or strain or stress. Just try to relax those areas. Maybe your shoulders feel tight, or areas around your jaw and your face. And also, if you move through your body, your attention through your body, you notice that anything is painful or uncomfortable, or just try to be as equanimous as you can with those sensations. Our natural inclination is to move as soon as we have some kind of painful feeling. Just attempt to not give in and change your position straight away. Try to push through the pain just a little bit. Obviously, if it gets too intense, then you can move. But just try to develop this equanimity with the painful sensations or uncomfortable sensations. And as we observe these sensations, we can also start to become aware of the sensations that are associated with our breath. You can feel the breath move throughout the body, through the torso and the chest, and at the tip of the nose. Just try to be aware of this flux and flow, the sensations of the breath and the sensations that are coursing throughout your body. Try to keep your attention very broad and receptive, and just notice this as a whole process. The breath and the sensations and how they all move and flow together. Notice the feeling, how the breath moves and permeates throughout your body. You can not only notice the breath at the tip of the nose or in the chest or in the abdomen, but if you can become still and concentrated enough, you can start to notice it in many other places in the body. You can start in some of these larger areas where it is more prominent. You can look in the back. And just notice how the breath feels coursing throughout your back area. Sensations of it expanding and contracting. And you can notice other places like your throat and your neck as the breath moves through. Now the breath seems to seep in to every point throughout your throat and your neck. You can move down and notice how your shoulders and your arms are impacted by the breath. They rise and fall and move and pulse. And even down through your arms, if you become very aware and refined, you can start to notice the breath moving throughout your arms and down your fingertips as your body expands and contracts as a whole with the breath. Just try to stay anchored on this process of the breath coming in and going out, but as you do so, move your awareness throughout your body and try to notice how the breath impacts every single part of your body. Try to breathe in and breathe out the whole body. Feel it as a continuous flow that courses throughout and permeates every square millimeter of the body. It's like if you were in the ocean with the water up over your head, and you could feel the movement and the pulse of the waves coming in and going out, and the movement of the water all around you. Try to notice the breath like this. It's like the ever-encompassing tide and the flow of water all around you. Allow yourself to be rocked and moved by that flow. last few minutes of the meditation, just cast your mind back over the course of the day and try to recollect all the things that you've done today. Try to recollect the conversations that you've had and the actions that you've done. Try to recollect these instances you've had throughout the day through the lens of morality, try to think, was there any aspect of my day that I didn't uphold so well? And also think of the many other instances where you did keep a good moral standard. You can think about your interactions throughout the day and think, did I physically harm anybody today? And did I take anything today that wasn't mine? Whether that be a big thing or a small thing. Try to be very circumspect and recollect all your actions. Think of your speech throughout the day. Was there any instances where you weren't truthful? Or you may engaged in slander or frivolous talk or gossip? Think about the interpersonal relationships you had throughout the day. Were they wholesome and upright? Or was there any cause for any kind of intoxications? As you go through these different situations that you've been in throughout the day, you'll likely notice there's many of those attributes that I mentioned that you didn't fall into. And just try to recollect how much of a force of good this was today for your own mind and for the people that you came in contact with. You didn't deceive or take anything from them or harm them in any way. You made the people around you, you made their life a little bit better today. You didn't cause them suffering. You contributed to their well-being. And just think how this can affect those people and how they interact with the world. And so realize through this day that you spent upholding some form of ethical conduct, that in some way that you have made the world a little bit better. There's so many other counterexamples to this, people that are not keeping a good moral standing or ethical conduct. And these are the people that little by little darken the world. But today, through your acts of morality, you've made the world a bit better. This is a true source of kindness and compassion on your behalf. That you didn't inflict any harm upon anybody else. You contributed to their well-being. And this is something we can continually recollect every day. At the end of the day, think about our speech and actions and if we've acted in line with the ethical standard that we've decided to uphold for ourselves. And feel grateful that we can do this thing that impacts other people's lives positively. While it may not seem like much, the effects of how this ripples out around you, to the people that you come in contact with, is actually far beyond what you can know. So anytime you are maybe feeling down in some way, this is something we can think of. We can think about our own morality and the actual good that we're contributing to the world. This can uplift us. hopefully you all had a nice, calming sit. Has anybody got any questions? Again, if anybody's on Zoom, just sort of put your hand up or something if you want to ask a question in person. Is there any questions in the chat or anything like that? Or
Ajahn, we've got nothing from the YouTube live stream chat as yet. But if anyone from the Zoom audience would like to ask a question, please raise your hand. Use the Zoom raise hand function.
anybody raising their hand? I can't see. So what we did towards the end of the meditation there, it's actually not very commonly practiced, but it is one of the techniques that the Buddha did actually recommend for us to do a different kind of method of meditation that we can do, and that's something we call it Silanusati, where you recollect the sila that you and the morality that you're upholding, and you sort of you can recollect the goodness that you're actually trying to achieve throughout the day, and the good things that you've actually done. And this is actually it can actually be quite a good way to really uplift our mind when when things aren't going so well, or we just feel like we need some kind of lift in some way. Recollecting our sila, our morality, it's actually quite a good and uplifting thing to do. And it's also a very good thing to do in trying to be very circumspect with everything that we've done throughout the day as well, of looking at any kind of areas where we might be might be limited in some way, or we may have made some minor slip-ups. We might have told a little white lie here or there just to make a social interaction go a little bit more easier, or we may have grabbed something of somebody's and just thinking, they won't mind if I grab this, or nobody's at the office at the moment, but most people grab pens and all these kinds of things from their place of work or whatever. So we can sort of look back throughout our actions that we've done throughout the day and actually just see, is there anywhere where I can actually improve, and not look at it in terms of, I failed today, I did this. It's not looking at it like that, but more looking at it as like, okay, that's an area where I can still improve. And recollecting these things is quite good, because then you, not to compare yourself to anybody, but you can just sort of see that there's so many other people in the world that aren't really keeping morality, or they're limited in some kind of ways from an ethical standpoint, and anytime somebody does do something that is unwholesome and is drawing the ethical line, this is making the world a little bit worse of a place. But with every good action and all good speech that you actually have, this is making the world a little bit better place every time that you do something, and it is actually affecting the people around you quite positively. Questions yet?
Ajahn, there's a couple of questions that have come on from YouTube.
Yep.
First question here is, when I'm restless during meditation, I'm angry about myself and adding ill will. Please advise.
Yeah. Usually if I'm just sort of extrapolating on what I think maybe this is about, is that usually we feel like anger or ill will when we're meditating, and we become restless because we think, the meditation is not working in some way, or or that I'm not cut out for this. I can't do this. I want peace in my mind, and the peace isn't there. So you become frustrated with that process because you've become restless, and it's just sort of like a vicious feedback loop of I become more restless. I get angry because I'm restless, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. So something that I try to remind people quite often is that most of the time we think that when our mind is calm and peaceful and happy and joyous and all these kinds of things, that this is meditation is really, really good at that time, and this is what we're trying to do. This is what all the hard work's for. This is what we're trying to develop. And while that is true to some extent, where you're really actually doing the work of meditation, and when you're succeeding in meditation, it is those times where you actually notice that your mind has wandered off, and that your mind has wandered into this, or sort of slipped into this stream of frustration, or slipped into this stream of random thoughts. When you notice that is actually happening, that's what you're meant to be doing. This is the thing this is the skill that you're actually trying to develop. So every time you do notice that, most of the time we notice, oh, my mind's wandered off, I'm restless, I can't do this. We feel negative in that time, but that's actually that time where you do notice that you're restless and you have wandered off. This is the thing that you're meant to be doing. So it's actually more a source. It should be more a source of encouragement. It's like, oh, great! I noticed that it had wandered off. I'm restless. It's wandered off. I'm angry. I've noticed this thing. And okay, I'll try to come back to the present. And you try to come back, and 2 breaths later, it's gone again, and you're angry again, and it's like, but it's so much better than just like spiraling with your anger and frustration. Again, if you think of so many other people in the world that don't practice any kind of meditation, once they get angry or they're angry and frustrated about something that's happening in their own mind, they've got no recourse to actually pull that back. So at least what you actually have through a practice like meditation, and what you're actually doing now, is that you're noticing this, and you're in some kind of way you're pulling the reins on this wild horse to some extent, even though the wild horse might just keep like racing, and it's pretty strong, and it's hard for you to actually pull the thing back. At least you've got some control there, and if you just keep continuing to try to do it, the anger and the frustration, it'll get a lot less. The sort of the wild horse that you're pulling at, it'll eventually get tired. So, don't let the horse like buck you off and go, I've had enough of this. I'm out of here. I'm going to go to the fridge. I'm going to go and watch Netflix or whatever. Just keep at it, and eventually it will get better. But and also just remember as well, it's quite normal to be frustrated, and when the mind is agitated, it's sort of, they go together. Frustration and agitation just go together very well. So yeah, it's just quite normal. So yeah.
Thank you, Ajahn. Here's a question from someone new to the Dhamma. If I want to learn or study more about Buddhism, what do you recommend?
Yeah. There's a few things. There's a few things that you can do. One is like studying, reading about Buddhism. It's good to the things that you do study. It's good to sort of go back to like the life of the Buddha and the things that actually that the actual historical Buddha said. That's a very good. That's a very good start. But obviously, try to find it in some kind of means where it's easy enough for you to understand, because some of it can be a bit dense at the start. So just try to start with very simple teachings of the Buddha. And then also along with that is doing practicing meditation, and trying to keep some sort of like good, ethical conduct. We talk about what we did at the end of the meditation. Talked about what's called the 5 precepts in Buddhism. Trying to make a how would you say, a bit of an ethical sort of like recourse in your life a little bit, and trying to improve these aspects of your morality in some way, and working on the practices of meditation, and working with these the practices that the Buddha recommended to do, watching the breath, loving kindness meditation, all these kinds of things. And another really good thing to do is, like you're actually doing tonight, try to find a community of people that are, that are like-minded and that are practicing as well, that are practicing and studying Buddhism as well. It's so important to be like well embedded in a good community of people, and have like people that can actually sort of help you, because it's at the start with getting into Buddhism, it's confusing. I've sort of been having this conversation with a lot of people lately about how there's so much information online now. There's so many teachers online. There's so much like Buddhist teachers online. So it's if you are getting started in Buddhism, like there's so much there, and it can be a little bit overwhelming. So while it's quite natural for you to sort of maybe flitter and find different teachings and all these kinds of things, once you do find something that you find say for example, you find a meditation technique that you find makes your mind reasonably calm, or calm to an extent, and you find some kind of teacher and community that you seem to at least resonate with, that seems like rational and reasonable and acceptable for you, then try to stick with that for a little while, until you get like a good foundation. Because if we sort of like jump to many different styles and many different teachers, we can just sort of get overwhelmed and confused. So not to say that you have to limit yourself to just one teacher and one place, obviously, but it is good to get a good basis first with a good community and some kind of good teacher or some kind of good guide, and then you can sort of like branch out a little bit more. But so yeah, if you're new to Buddhism, I recommend looking back really at the teachings, the actual teachings of the Buddha. You can't really go wrong with the teachings of the Buddha. There's a lot of I'm sure there's a lot of like ridiculous gifs out there and memes of the Buddha said this, and there's a nice lotus flower and a pretty sunset on there, and it's a Buddha quote, and it's like the Buddha didn't really say that. So try to stick to the actual things that the Buddha actually said from the Pali Canon and things like that, and some of the good teachers. Try to stick with that. You can't really go wrong with that. But then also again, try to practice these teachings as well. These teachings are they're a practical way for you to live your life. So through practicing meditation and keeping good ethical conduct, and again finding a good community with a good teacher. So not to say you're here tonight and I'm a good teacher or anything like that, but it's very good that you're doing the right thing by sort of trying to find a community as well. So.
Thank you, Ajahn. There's about 7 minutes to go. There's about 3 questions here as well. 3 more. Yeah.
Oh, we got too many questions tonight.
And none from the Zoom.
None from the Zoom. The Zoom sort of,
Are they still there?
They got like stage fright behind the camera kind of thing there.
Okay. Question is, when should one let a certain mind state be versus trying to nudge the mind in a certain direction?
Yeah. That's a really good question. It's if you notice that the mind state is unwholesome, you should attempt in some way to nudge the mind in a more wholesome direction. So say for example you have a thought of anger come up.
and it's sort of repetitive thoughts of anger, yeah, you can try to nudge the mind by developing something like, loving kindness or something on top of that. The times where we would just observe the mind and just let the thought go, that sort of has to come built into that actual aspect of nudging the mind. You sort of, before you can nudge the mind, you have to first accept that, okay, well, the mind's in this negative state. So there is an actual detached observation of that and observing it in some way, and so, but you have to do that before you actually nudge the mind. So you have to do both. You have to be continually be doing both. Sometimes, so if you can just observe the negative thought that's there, and so for example, it's anger, you see it and you just observe it. It's just something, it comes and goes. Great. But it has to go. It can't just be something like, I'm observing the mind coming and going, and it's coming and it's going and it's coming 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 again. This aspect of being sort of non-judgmental and letting these things go, you have to have let it go and it has to stop. So if you're noticing it, you're trying to do that kind of just letting the mind be. If it's not stopping, you definitely should be trying to nudge at that point in time. But again, if you can just observe it and it stops, okay, that's good. Then that's over. So, yeah, don't fall into that sort of trap of well, I'm just going to observe this arise and pass away and just not do anything about it. If you can do that and it does drop away, good. If not, try to give it a bit of a nudge. Hopefully that answers the question. Yeah.
Thank you, Ajahn. Next question here is, how can one deal with the feelings of remorse and self-reproach about one's past words and actions? Recollecting sila is a good idea, but may not help one to overcome remorse.
Again, it depends. It depends what the situation was about. If it was something that you did do and you did have, that it was something that was to some extent was in your control, you can use this not as a means of remorse, but as a means of, okay, well, this is how I fell into doing this more negative action. This is something I have to watch out for. I have to learn from this situation, and trying to use it as, instead of something that you look back on with with regret, but looking back on it as something, well, this is something that I can learn from, that I can actually improve myself from. But yeah, it's hard, when you do start to regret these things. But the other side of it as well, it actually can be a good, these like pangs of regret that you may have when you think you've done something wrong in the past. It can be a good cause for you to sort of make amends for that as well, if it's somebody that's still around, and you know that you did something wrong to them. It could be this feeling of a guilty conscience or a regretful conscience. You can use that as the driving force to actually make you potentially apologize to them or something like that. But if they're not around as well, if they're not around, say for example, it might have been a relative or a friend that's passed away now, and did something wrong in the past, kind of thing. There isn't too much you can do about that. One thing you can do from this Buddhist perspective is in your mind, you try to forgive yourself in your mind, but two, say for example, this person's passed away, you can sort of like internally ask them for forgiveness as well, and any kind of good actions that you actually do, you can spread merit to them and spread loving kindness to them, as a way of in some way you're paying back in some way. So, but yeah, it's a difficult one. It like depends on the exact thing that's transpired. There's no sort of clear-cut answer, but you know, it can be a good source of making your behaviour a bit better in the future. One more.
There's one more, and 1 minute to go.
Yeah.
Last question for the night. How should one deal with fear during meditation?
Can we go over a little bit, or yeah, okay, cool. I'll try to, yeah, because that can be problematic. You have to be careful. I'm prepared to go over with this because you do have to be very careful. It can really like go astray. Any kind of fear that does come up, you have to know your limits. You have to know your limits of what you can deal with that fear. If it is this like kind of sort of terrible fear that's arising kind of thing, you pull back, try to pull back from it, go and change, go and do something else. While you're having those kinds of anxious and fearful thoughts at that time, that might not be the best time for you to be doing meditation. Get up, change, go do something else, and then maybe come back a little bit later when you're not feeling as anxious and as fearful. But if it's a fear that you feel like you can deal with, well, we'll deal with it up to the point that you feel like you can deal with it. Just say if the level of fear is at a let's call it an 8 out of 10. The level of fear you have is an 8 out of 10, and you feel like, well, you can face it up to about say for example, like a 6 or something. Just try to face it up to a 6. Don't try to go, oh, well, the fear's coming, so I'll just run away from it straight away. Try to face it up to about a 6, but if you know that if you hit a 7 or an 8, like this is going like too far, and so that you should pull back. So if you keep doing that and trying to face the fear just a little bit, but then if you realize it's too much, I need to pull back, then that's fine. Eventually, if your fear is sort of like sitting at an 8, if you keep doing that, going from 6, and then maybe you do a few 6s, and then you get up to a 7 every now and again, and eventually you'll be able to get to the 8, and it's going to be terrifying and fearful, but you would have built up a bit more strength of mind to actually overcome that at that time, and that's when you can start to move past this fear. But just be in saying all that, just be very careful. If the fear really is overwhelming, it's probably not the right time to be doing meditation at that time. Change, go do something else, and try to come back to it a little bit later. Okay, so if that's the case, we might call it a night, and we really do appreciate everybody tuning in on the multiple mediums in the Zoom and YouTube as well. It's really nice to actually see some people as well. I can, you're a bit far away. I don't have glasses on. I can only sort of see a few bright boxes. So there's some movement in front of me anyway. So that's a nice thing. And again, thanks to the AV geniuses setting up this, facilitating it. It makes it more interactive for us all. So people seem to like it very much. So we do thank the team here and everyone else that's contributing and helping out in the BSV. And hope your meditation and your Dhamma practice goes well throughout the week. So have a good night. Yes, Hatum.